guys, some Gamer Dude here. Magic the Gathering is the grandfather of all modern TCGs. Even if you haven't played it directly, you've probably played one of its many descendants, or the descendants of its kid brother, Duel Masters. Magic and Duel Masters being by far the most influential games of all time. Magic also draws some mixed emotions from most people. The resource system, the cost of playing it, the fanbase, the staff, it's hard to find consistently positive opinions about Magic as a whole. Today I want to talk about Magic the Gathering, giving my honest opinions on various aspects of it. Things that are too small to make their own videos about. Magic has changed a lot since 1993 in Alpha, visually and in terms of gameplay. I don't like a few of these changes. Let's start with the template. Is everyone familiar with the soulless meme? That's how I feel about the template. The modern template for Magic is really clear and functional. Very easy to read, everything in their own space. It's a good template. The original could sometimes be ineligible, the text seemingly slapped on. But you know what? I prefer it. It really invokes the feel of Magic's flavour, a tome from your library. It's not perfect, but it really suits the game's themes. By comparison, the current template is too modern for the context and feels sterile. It's clearly designed with functionality, and it's good at its function, but it doesn't feel good for a game where you're a wizard in what was originally the Middle Ages. The Future Sight template was honestly even worse, feeling futuristic. Sticking with older things but better due to flavour, I really dislike the term creature spell over the old summon spell. Summon spell made perfect sense in context. It was a spell that summoned something. Creature gets very awkward with human cards. You can summon a person, no problem. Calling a person a creature? That's a bit uncomfortable to me. It's grammatically correct and not always negative to call a person a creature, though it may be considered a bit lecherous in certain contexts. It doesn't stop it from being uncomfortable. Summon has no such connotations. You open a magic portal, you summon a human, knight, goblin, dragon, lich, whatever. Boom, done. No alternative way to take it from people like me, who admittedly read into things a little too much. I do kinda get it from a design aspect. It being a creature spell flat out tells people that this entity is a creature. But in the same breath, designating something as summon doesn't sound too weird to the ear. We did it back in the day with Final Fantasy, and its own TCG does it. Destroy target summon doesn't sound that bad at all. Let's move to the game itself rather than flavour and aesthetics. I am rather conflicted on Magic. I enjoy Magic enough. It plays well, it's got a decent amount of strategy, I like the colour pie, I can get enjoyment from playing it. I like building decks, but my heart is never in it. I never want to play it consistently, nor do I want to play it beyond the kitchen table. It's something I pick up every 6 or so months, play it a bit, check out what's come out, and either make a new deck or mod what I have. I don't spend very much, I don't play very much. Doing a deep think about it, I believe my feelings towards Magic aren't really there. What I feel is apathy, a lack of any strong feelings. I believe I feel this way for a few reasons. Magic is not really good at building bonds. God bless them, they try, but they are really abysmal at it. I'm going to tackle this two ways: creatures and planeswalkers. Magic has never really pushed creatures to my knowledge. They've made them more important to the game over time, and they do tribalism. Some creatures like Shivan Dragon and Sarah Angel are iconic, but Magic really doesn't go for these boss monsters for people to have imprint on them. They don't have their Dark Magician, their Blue Eyes, their Red Eyes, their Relinquished, or their Jinzo. It doesn't have these iconic creatures of certain planes that they support or make a big deal about how cool they are, how you should want them and use them. With Magic, it's a mechanic. It's always a mechanic. That's great and all, but you don't really miss mechanics all that much when they're gone, and they don't imprint on you in the same way. What's odd about this is that Duel Masters does do these boss monsters. Even spells in Duel Masters are memorable. Death like a Lion of Chaos, Bolom, Alcadeus, Scarlet Sky Terror, Crystal Paladin, Bronze Arm Tribe, Bolshak Dragon, Tornado Flame, Holy Ore, Terror Pit. I could go for ages, and that's just the first block of cards. It was a long time ago too, over a decade. Duel Masters made a huge imprint. Magic? Not so much. There is nothing here to bond with. They are literally just cards with text. They have nothing of real importance. They don't mean anything and they aren't meant to. That's not a positive. But this isn't to say Wizards doesn't market cards, just not creatures. This is where we get to Planeswalkers. I really dislike Planeswalkers. This is where Wizards puts all their effort in marketing, wanting something to be the face of Magic, to have their Dark Magician, their Bolshak Dragon, etc. But it doesn't work. The context of Magic is you are a wizard called a Planeswalker. You walk between planes of existence and sometimes meet another Planeswalker, with whom you duel summoning creatures and casting spells. Planeswalkers as characters have existed for a very long time, but not the Planeswalker cards. The Planeswalker cards represent Planeswalkers in the Magic the Gathering story whom you summon to help you in your duel, because you're a dirty fighter. Let's be honest, it's not fair to go 2-on-1. Super Friends is even worse. Stop gang bashing people. Naughty, naughty. But to go back to serious talk, Planeswalkers exist for the sole reason of marketing. They are the cards you are meant to develop a bond with. The characters being boring dreck with unappealing character designs is neither here nor there when the card mechanically isn't making those bonds. Force of Will, for all its problems, is good at making those bonds. You see the ruler every game because it's a static entity that starts in play. Commander is better at building those bonds than normal Magic for the same reason. Vanguard is built on you seeing grade 3s and has the anime to push them, along with the blaster grade 2s. Resonators and Force of Will and creatures and Duel Masters are better at building bonds because you see them reliably. You don't see Planeswalkers each game. You don't start with them. They're just a modular enchantment with its own life counter. Everything goes against it to be marketable and sell the game. The bizarre thing is, Magic used to have exactly what it needed to have marketable faces. The Vanguard. Not to be confused with the game Cardfight Vanguard, Magic used to have an auxiliary product that was a notable character of Magic at the time you played as. This gave you an effect, modded your life, and modded your hand size. It's more influence over the gameplay than most other games I can think of where you start with characters in play. This could have been refined to make Magic more marketable. While you would need appealing, well-designed characters, actually playing as those characters would go a long way to making them sell the game, developing those bonds between the cards and their players. Of course, going back to actual creatures and selling the game on how cool those creatures are, putting the importance back on the player, would honestly be preferable. We're going far into Flavor Fail with the Vanguard, but if we must sell it on characters, I think the Vanguard was a better concept than Planeswalkers. Even the Commander is. Planeswalkers don't do what they are trying to do. They are worse than a flavor fail. They are a design fail. They were a mistake. Mark Rosewater, lead designer of Magic, has changed a lot about Magic to make it better resonate with people, to improve the game. Some of it I agree with. Now I've been against a deck with a ton of negates, I understand why they won't let Counterspell into Standard. I also understand the logic behind being very reserved with land destruction and cards like Dark Ritual, which I kind of feel should have swapped colours, land destruction being black and rituals being quick mana for red. But I don't think Magic as a game feels good. It doesn't feel bad, it's not a bad game, far from. It just doesn't make those good feelings. Everyone complains about lands and rightfully so. It creates consistency issues and those cause the game to slant. This is by design. Richard Garfield claims it was so that new players can luck out. But it also causes another issue. The game centralizes itself around the 1 to 3 drops, as that's the most mana you will consistently have each game. But not only that, these cards are the most efficient. There is very little spectacle in Magic. The big cards are too expensive to get out, and thanks to the focus on the efficient lower drops, pale in comparison. None of these creatures that cost 5 or more really warrant their costs when compared to the 3 and under. The time and effort, the length of time they are in the hand doing nothing. Most of them are simply not worth the hassle. None of these efficient, low-cost cards are bombastic or impressive enough to feel good in the same way. Given that I've mentioned him, I'll make a comment on Mark Rosewater. I think the entire community's opinions on the man are too extreme. They either love him or hate him, attributing everything good and bad about Magic to him respectively. I'll be the first to say the man can't express himself particularly well, coming off as pompous and smarmy in tone, but he isn't wrong in a lot of cases. The dumbing down of the game many people attribute to him, not really a negative thing. Not completely, it has its benefits. Typically, if a game is too complex, it fails to find a wide audience, because learning the game is an effort in frustration. Likewise, games that typically do well on the mass market are simple to learn. Their base rules are relatively intuitive. Magic trying to be as mass marketable as possible is not a bad thing from the perspective of Wizards of the Coast, and prevents a lot of logic issues such as has been seen in other games where rulings and card interactions are needlessly complex. Likewise, the removal of certain effects or their cost being pushed up. Mark points to R&D conducting actual research resulting in these decisions. This has caused things like the near removal of land destruction and the complete altering on how counterspells are designed. The original counterspell not even being in modern. Even creature kill has been affected by this. The story is that the people they are bringing in don't like these things. So the detractors say the people that they bring in should buck up and deal with it. As a designer, you do not want to put people in a hopeless situation. You do not want to tell people they have no way out of this problem. Not only do they shut down and quit because the game feels bad to play, the winning side cannot complete their game, resulting in their positive feelings of winning being denied from them. They also see how bad the opponent feels, and provided they actually have feelings of empathy, don't want games to turn out like that. For the same reasons lands were designed the way they were, you really want to stray away from feels bad mechanics. You don't want to turn people away from your game because they feel absolutely miserable playing it. They have no point in playing it from that moment, as traditionally getting good at a TCG costs money first and foremost. Skill is very important, I don't want to downplay that, but good cards cost money. Bad cards cost next to nothing. Why invest in a game you're not having fun with? I'm not saying these mechanics shouldn't exist, they just need to be handled well. Let's briefly talk art. The art has issues. It's very well made in terms of construction, but it's bland, samey, and blends into itself. It doesn't even pop like it did back when Magic started, or its contemporaries. The art doesn't make an impression. It's not ugly, it just lacks impact. I'll bring up my favourite example, Shivan Dragon. The original pops with its green contrasting the red of the card. The art itself is striking. The new one blends in with the card with its orange tint and basically looks like every other Magic card. It's not even that the art style can't look nice and pop. Faria from Force of Will's SKL uses a very similar art style to modern Magic, but looks much nicer with better use of colour. It pops, has identity, and makes an impact. It is, just to mention here, it is actually my favourite artwork from Force of Will. I'm going to end this video with one last point I want to talk about. Magic has a unique problem where people don't stay with it very long. I've even said I don't. I stick my head in, reap what I want, and leave. The general length of people staying is about 18 to 24 months, which is an interesting amount of time. If you bought cards the moment they were current at the time you started, 18 to 24 months is about the time they'd be rotated out. I know many people hate rotation for this reason, their cards becoming useless and worthless, but I want to draw another point no one has talked about. If these people are around for about 2 years, time enough for about 8 sets, why are none of the new cards sparking them enough to make a new deck and stay around? For as expensive as Magic is, I don't think that's really the problem. I think it has a lot to do with how Magic as a game functions. I am speaking purely from my perspective here, but since I picked up Magic, I've liked bugger all sets. Innistrad got me in, I like Kaladesh enough, but I have next to no interest outside of core sets afterwards. None of the themes or mechanics really click with me, so I don't buy them. I wonder how many other people feel this way. The new sets are so radically different to what attracted me to the game. As the older sets leave and nothing new sparks them, they lose interest in the game as a whole till something sparks them, if it ever does. The other reasonable explanation is that Magic is a terrible game that provides a terrible experience and is ultimately repellent. People can only cop it for so long before they admit they aren't having fun and leave. It is a reasonable answer, but the game wouldn't have people returning and would be long since dead if this was the case. Every block is simply too different, without ties to the prior block, to kind of ease people from block to block, keeping them in. Those are my honest thoughts on Magic the Gathering, things that sparked my interest. Nothing big enough to make an entire video about, but I still wanted to talk about them. I know this video is incredibly negative. I never talked about the things I actually liked about the game, and there are things I like. I like the speed of the game, and the colour pie is well done, being much better than any of the games that have come out in its wake. For all its issues as a game, power creep is fairly contained and not really an issue. It's more a combination of cards, or certain cards in particular, that cause issues. It's just that none of these are things you really want to talk about too much, because outside of very general game design discussions, they aren't terribly interesting topics. I didn't even mean to really have this video come off as negative. It's just a series of observations. I don't dislike Magic. I just don't have any strong feelings here or there. And I think other games do very important things like marketing and generating good experiences much better. If you want to talk about it further, feel free to comment and we can have a discussion. This has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.